I am so grateful and thankful for Douglas and the persons responsible for me being here. I count it an honor and a privilege to stand before you to be able to speak about something that is so near and dear to my heart. I am from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, a little distance away from here. And I come from a strong family. My father and my mother, they are still in my life to this day. My father and mother, they've been pastoring a church for 48 years. I'm not 48 years old. Slightly a few days past 21, give a day, give or take a little bit. But all my life, my parents have been a part of my life. They've been Christians, and they raised me to be a young man that they would be proud of. And I'm praying every day and hoping that I'm making them proud. But the reason why school choice is so significant to me is because I think we're dealing with a structural systemic issue. Again, I don't come from a single parent home. I don't come from a negligent parenting. I come from parents who was very much so on top of my life and very much so attuned to how I was matriculating through school and everything else. But, you know, when you look at my story and you think about who I am, I like to say I should have been a statistic. I was able to matriculate through 12 years of schooling and graduate probably at a first or second grade level in reading. You may say, how? Well, 100 pounds ago, I was a great athlete. Now my strongest muscle is my forearm. But at one point, I could really play basketball and football, and I was one of the best in my city. And so I get to high school, and you're talking about a 4-year starter on the basketball team. You're talking about all-state, all-city football. You're talking about 25 Division I-A offers. And I wasn't able to take any of those offers in high school because I couldn't pass the SAT. The SAT at the time required an 860. I didn't score over an 800 until my 4th time. And the reason why is because I couldn't read. So I missed out on all 25 of those Division I-A offers and was able to go to a Division I AA school called Gardner-Webb University in Bowling Springs, North Carolina. And I get to Gardner-Webb University, and as a freshman, I was the freshman of the year in the conference. And I had an awesome freshman season, first semester in college. And in football, I am living it up. Our team won the conference championship. I was freshman of the year in the conference, but I got 5 Fs in school. And I introduced myself to my professor on the day of the final. Because in high school, I didn't have to take finals. I was that type of athlete that just pushed me through. So what do? 5 Fs. That next semester, went from bad to worse. After 3 semesters, I had a .67 GPA. .67. My mom said, Lord Jesus, Josh. And so I failed out of school. I came home and I said to my dad, I said, man, I don't know what I'm going to do. He said, well, I don't know what you're going to do either. Your name is Robertson. And what we start, we finish. So you can't come back home. And I didn't know what to do. So I got with a friend. And my friend, and off camera, I'll tell you the story behind it. My friend asked me to take him to Altoona, Pennsylvania. I took him up to Altoona, Pennsylvania. And as soon as I arrived there, a bishop from North Carolina called me. And literally, as soon as I parked the car, and he said, man, when you coming back down here to North Carolina? You know, I'm looking for my organist at the church. I know how to play the organ, and you know anything about growing up in the chocolate church side of town, you know how to strike the E flat here and there. So he was like, man, when you coming back down here? And I failed out of school, Bishop. I'm not coming back down. He said, man, what you gonna do now? I said, man, I don't know, man. He said, man, whatever you're doing right now, you're about to ruin your entire life, aren't you? What he didn't know was what I had in the trunk. Something that I'm not proud of now. God be praised. I didn't get in any trouble and, you know, nothing like that. He said, aren't you? He's like, you're about to ruin your life, aren't you? Aren't you? Aren't you? And every time he said it, it's like it just hit me in my heart. And I started crying, literally on the phone. And this bishop begged me. He said, man, move back down here to North Carolina and we'll figure it out We'll figure out what to do next. So I moved back down there, and the first day I was down there, he took me to Cleveland Area Community College in Shelby, North Carolina. And he enrolled himself and myself in school on his dime. Mind you, this bishop had 3 pastors living in his house at the time on sabbatical. He was trying to help them. I didn't even have a bed to live in. I had to stay on the couch that 6 months while I went to school. And he went to school with me. Mind you, he's 36 years old at the time. He has an earned PhD. He just finished that last spring. He has no business being in school again at some community college, but he inconvenienced his entire life to give me a chance. The first week in school, he said, man, you can't read. He was the first educator in my life to point out that I couldn't read. Wow. And so he bought me a Goosebumps book and a highlighter, and his class was harder than the 3 I was taking at the community college. I had to write a weekly book report on what I was reading. Wow. After that semester, I got 2 A's and a B. He got 2 B's and an A. I got 2 A's and a B. And then that summer, I went to Harrisburg Area Community College in my hometown. Then I went to Lackawanna Junior College in Scranton, Pennsylvania. And by the 5th game of the year, I was the #1 D-back in the country. Ole Miss had came to a game. That's how the offer happened. They came to look at somebody who was 6'7", 330 pounds, and I had 2 interceptions, ran back for a touchdown for both of them. And so I got an offer from Ole Miss and many other Division I schools and ended up going to the University of Minnesota. But you're looking at someone now who has a bachelor's degree in business and has a master's degree in divinity. But at one point, I was that student that I remember when I was in 7th grade, my principal telling my parents, if he doesn't make it to the NFL, he can't learn. I don't know what you're going to do with him. And she was wrong. But it took someone inconveniencing their entire life to give me a chance. It took someone who was willing to not only sacrifice their money, but also their time, also their talent. Someone who was willing to be sacrificial. And all I'm saying is, instead of waiting till kids come out of jail or waiting till they mess up a Division I scholarship like me, at 19, we should be doing this for kids at 9, right? And that's what I'm about. That's what my organization is about. So fast forward, 2018, we started church, the Rock Church. And we're doing well. Okay, what are we going to do in the community? We started an after-school program. We started a food pantry. And of course, all of the prophets let us know that the pandemic was coming in 2020. Tongue in cheek, no. I always joke with my prophetic friends. I'd be like, man, y'all prophets, y'all ain't know nothing about this pandemic. I'm joking, y'all. Kinda. 2020 hits. Now we are in the pandemic. And once the kids got sent home from their public schools, I started getting phone calls from parents. And mind you, my church is in the middle of a rough neighborhood, y'all. So I began to get calls from parents, 30 to 40 a day. Parents are blowing up the phone to the church. Can my kids come there during the day? No, we're not a daycare. What are you talking about? No. But then I had a member of my church, a young woman who had a 7-year-old son, and she lost her job because of COVID. And she's, of course, panicking. She's a single mom. And so I thought, okay, as her pastor, what am I going to do? I said, well, I have all these kids who parents want to come to my church during the day, and they're online for their curriculum and instruction. I'm like, man, she was the after-school counselor. I'm like, man, she could do that all day. And that'd be a way to sustain her work and also help these parents who needed an outlet for their kids. So I said, okay, I did that. And then that next summer, talk about the biblical principle, be faithful over a few, make you ruler over many, right? That next summer, somebody called me and said, do you have room for an after-school program? Absolutely, we do. We're talking. And the next thing you know, I share with this gentleman what we had done this last year, having this in-person learning guide oversee the academic day for these 5 or 6 students. And he said to me, Pastor Robertson, that's a micro school. And I said, what's a micro school? He said, you're doing it. He said, do you want to do it on a bigger scale? He said, I may know some friends who can help you. I said, yes, absolutely. So we formed in our church the Rock City Learning Center. And we started with 9 children, and I hired members of my church to oversee their academic day. At the end of that year, we ended with 30 students. 29 out of the 30 students were failing when they came to us. At the end of the year, 22 out of the 30 finished on the honor roll. All right. Second year, 50% of our students, 51% of our students finished above a 90% GPA. Third year, once we started expanding, we didn't have a student finish the year under a 71%. Right now, we're in our 4th year, 5 locations. Our kids are thriving. It's amazing how they come to us with all of these behavioral problems, all of these academic problems, and a change of scenery, surrounded by love, Christian love. Now, all of a sudden, these children who came to us, who were a terror in their last school, who were IEPs in their last school, now come to us, and they're thriving. And this is what I realized. There's no substitute for love. Right? When you surround our children with people who are love warriors, that's what I call them. On paper, they're called learning guides. I call them love warriors. When you surround our kids around people who are willing to walk in a room and say, you know what? Every kid in here is going to succeed. Every kid in here is smart. Every kid in here, we have a high standard. And you'd be shocked at, watch this, you can put the standard here, the kid reaches it, and then you lift the standard and the kid wants to reach the next one. You'd be surprised how you can, through competition of our students, we have them compete academically, not just in sports, but even academically. We incentivize based off of the results of the entire learning pod or classroom. You'd be surprised how the kids hold each other accountable for having good grades and want to excel and do well. And this is why I wholeheartedly, it brought me to this issue of school choice, because how do you start, sustain, and scale these opportunities? I started off with philanthropists being my way of starting and scaling and sustaining. But the nature of philanthropy doesn't work like that, right? You have to have a sustainable model for, your endeavor, whatever is education or whatever. And so it began to make me think, okay, well, how is education paid for? Well, in Pennsylvania, the average per pupil spending for our kid is $24,000 a year. And so I began to say, okay, well, how can we tap into that $24,000 a year? You can. So if a kid comes to my learning center and they're a public school student, they come to our learning center, even if they come to our learning center and their experiences with us, all of the money is still going to the public school. So I began to peer into this school choice. And I began to realize that if I wanted to do what I was doing in these churches, that it couldn't be, accessibility to these programs could not be reduced to affordability. That parents who are on the margins, parents who are in the community of the least of these, don't have the ability to just move to another district where the school suits their kids. If you are a certain level of income, if you have a certain level of income, the reality of their plight in this country, if the state does not have school choice laws, is this is what we're saying. You go to that school and we'll figure it out. It may take us 30 years, but we'll figure it out. Maybe third year of your prison sentence, we'll have it figured out. Or maybe the 5th year that you have your 8th illegitimate child outside of wedlock, we'll figure it out. Or maybe, you get what I'm saying. We don't have time for people to figure it out. This past summer, I had a funeral on a Tuesday and a Wednesday. The funeral on Tuesday was with my own cousin, 19-year-old girl, 6 months pregnant, shot and killed. The next day, I funeralized. It was a double homicide on the same street as my church. Right? Double homicide on the same street as my church. That pastoring in this context has shaped how I view the world. Because I wholeheartedly believe that my cousin who was shot and killed and those two victims who were shot and killed, if they had a communal vision of what their future could look like and it was prosperous and they could do well, they wouldn't be gunning each other down. People who have a vision for their future, usually the vision for their future can guard how they behave and how they think. But if you don't see a future for yourself and you don't have any value of life and you haven't been taught how to manage in this world today, of course you're not going to make the right decisions. And so this is the reason why Black Pastors United for Education, I wholeheartedly believe that school choice is the answer. And I can tell you what I believe should happen moving forward. I think that every church in America can be a part of the solution in a number of different ways. Let me start with our summer enrichment program. Our summer enrichment program started like this. 3 years ago, there was a young boy named Brandon. Brandon was shot at the local gas station. Ricochet bullet went through his hand, up through his arm. He survived. Brandon was 14 when he got shot. He was walking down the street, and I see him. I said, "Hey, man, come here, man. We've been praying for you. Glad you made it and everything." I said, "How much would you charge me to stop selling drugs and work here at the church?" 14 years old. His job at the gas station was to hold a big package of drugs in a book bag, and when the drug dealer came by, he just gave him the book bag. And he would get paid $75 to $100 a week just for doing that. I said, "Man, I'll pay you $200 a week if you'll come to the church and I'll teach you how to lay floors and paint." We didn't need new flooring and painting in the church. I created the project just to incentivize him to stay out the street. So I said, "But not only you," I said, "go get 3 of your friends and I'll pay all 4 of y'all $200 a week and we'll teach you." And I have a licensed contractor in my church. I had him do the project. He showed them how to do, painting and flooring and everything. And for that summer, we had 7 kids from our neighborhood who literally we just incentivized work here at the church instead of selling drugs. And that's how we came up with what we now call the Black Pastors United for Education Business Builders. And every summer, our kids come together, they get paid, and they build a business. So this past summer, we had 26 kids, 4 teams. On Monday and Wednesday, they built a restaurant. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, they were a construction company. On Monday and Wednesdays, they had to, from scratch, build a business. From what kind of business entity, from supply chain to marketing, you name it, they had to build the business. And then they had a market day where anyone from the community could come and they bought the food. One team was meats, sides, desserts, drinks, but they all built a business and sold it publicly. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, they went to a local apartment, which was down the street with a single mother who lived there, and we renovated that apartment space. So they were a construction team on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and on Monday and Wednesday, they were a restaurant. Each kid got paid $200, so it was their summer job. And look at what we're teaching them, how to build a business in our local churches. And I think every church could do that. Every church, you have a group of teenagers, and imagine if you incentivize them again to not sell drugs, to not be a part of the street economy, but to create an economy for them to participate in your local church. All right? That's how we came up with our summer program. But then also after school program. Right? In our after school program, we focus on getting kids to grade level in reading and in math. The reality is, although I'm able to sit here and boast to you about the academic achievement of our students, when you peel back the layer, guess what? Many of them can't read at grade level. And many of them can't do math at grade level. And so we may be a Band-Aid, but we need more help than just a Band-Aid. So our after school programs we call Scholars in Training, where we don't do homework assistance, but we help kids to get the grade level in reading and in math. I think every church across this country can be a part of one of those two things. Here's the third. An academic learning center, like I explained to you earlier, where the kids are enrolled in a public cyber charter school. I know you all don't have cyber charter schools here, but here's where I would hope that you would have a vision of potentially what could happen. I heard recently that you had a cyber charter school just recently passed. And no, I think students do need in person. I do believe that. But you could leverage that cyber experience and then hire members of your church to oversee their academic day like how we do. I don't hire educators. The education comes from the cyber curriculum and the instruction, right? But the experience is shaped by Christians, right? That's just another method. But here's the last thing, and this is the thing we were talking about at our table. I think we need to make a pivot towards establishing private Christian schools in churches. Number one, there's no shortage of real estate that can be leveraged rightly to do this. Number two, it's not just about education in the sense of academics. Who teaches you how to be a husband, how to be a father, how to be a wife, how to be a mother? Who teaches you how to be a person of character and of morals and of ethics? And the reality of education in America, it started with the church. And I wholeheartedly believe that the church has to reclaim our real legacy of not just worshiping on Sunday and leaving buildings open Monday through Friday. We need to be using our building all throughout the week to educate our kids. Amen. And to be certain, this is a crisis. This is not just a good idea. And I'm hoping to appeal to lawmakers, because now is not the time to say this is right and this is wrong. No, now is the time to say these United States, as it relates to education, is in crisis, and we need robust offerings and options for our kids. We need to stop competing in the toilet bowl. That's really what's happening. You have some nerve to say no to another educational model when you're in the toilet bowl. Our children are not doing well in our current systems. And guess what? You don't have to be a public school hater to be an advocate for school choice. We're in America. We're in a country that knows how to be creative. We're in a country that knows how to be industrious. We're in a country that knows how to innovate. We wouldn't be here if we didn't know how to do those things. There's a reason why we are the United States of America. But I don't think we're being very American when it comes to education. God knows if you don't want McDonald's, there's a Chick-fil-A somewhere by. If you don't want one hospital, they do you wrong, you can go to another one. God knows as a pastor, you don't like my church. You can find another church. But if you are a certain level of poor, that's where you go. That's so un-American. And so I wholeheartedly believe that now is the time to put parents before politics. Now is the time to put students before systems. Now is the time to champion a vision for our future where our children are empowered to reach their highest potential. Now is the time to trailblaze a future, a visionary future, as we continue to be global leaders. Now is the time to invest in our future. Now is the time to produce the world's greatest community leaders, academicians, scholars, doctors, lawmakers, attorneys, pastors, but guess what? Husbands and wives and friends. Now is the time to think deeply. Now is the time that we should build our own school. Now is the time to use our creative genius and ingenuity to build schools. Can you imagine what Mississippi could be like if we trained our students to continue the legacy of the industries that you have here? Mississippi has a legacy of advanced manufacturing, aerospace and defense, agriculture and food, forestry, energy and chemical industry, and distribution and logistics. Who carries on the legacy of these industries when all of us are off the scene? 30 years from now, when we can't do it the same way we're doing it now. Have we invested into that next generation? Have we prepared them to be global collaborators and global competitors? Are we preparing the next generation not to just survive? We are America. We should be looking to thrive. And I think school choice is how we get there. At some point, we got to break the model that currently exists and unlock the potential for our children. And so I'm glad to be here today to share and to be a part of this great movement. Thank you for allowing me to share my time. I hope I didn't overstep or go too long. Thank you. think we are going to open up a time for Q&A or whatever that may be. I would love to speak to or answer any questions or whatever that may be, just in light of the moment. Yeah. Yes?
Pastor, we were talking a little bit about turning young men into men when we were sitting over here. You know, in Mississippi, over 50% of babies that are born into single-parent homes. So you were talking a bit about the percentage of your students that are also born into single-parent homes. What do you do to reach those really tough-to-reach students? How do we reach those young people so that they're going to live a productive life in the future?
In many ways, at our learning center and in our church, we've become the parents. Because the reality is, in our culture, we have kids raising kids, right? Like we have grandmothers in their 30s, right? That's a reality, right? And so I think, yes, you know, one of the things you'll hear so much from people who are pro-public school, and mind you, I'm pro-public school. How about this, pro-students? I don't care what school you're in. I'm pro-students. So if you're in public school, guess what? I'm for the public school there. And they'll say, well, we got to hold the parents accountable. Well, what do we do when we have a parent crisis that's on the level of our academic crisis? And we do, especially in under-resourced neighborhoods like mine. So I think, you know, number one, this is the reason why I believe the church is so poised to make the real difference, is because in many ways, you know, those learning guides who are not educators, right? These learning guides become like parents to these students. And I think it's a generational problem. It's a significant problem of parenting. And I think until we get that under control, and whatever that looks like, getting that under control, whatever that looks like, that the church and community organization is going to have to play that role until we get parenting under control. I think those are two epidemics in the United States: educational crisis and a crisis in parenting. Yes?
Hey, Pastor, thank you for your talk. I'm Catherine Tate, independent consultant. On that note, what role, if any, do you think government subsidies of single parents have in exacerbating the problem of children without two-parent families?
Do I believe that subsidies for single parents is exacerbating the problem?
Yes.
Well, here's the thing. I look in Harrisburg and say 3% of the black students in 8th grade are at grade level in reading, and 13% are at grade level in math. I don't know what the statistics are here in Mississippi, but I don't think that we have statistics in place that give us a reason to say no to any option. We are in a crisis. So if a single mother needs a voucher or whatever that is, anything is better than the 40% that we just scored on the national testing, right? We are in a crisis. I don't think we are not in a position to say no to educational options. And I think that really we need the way to hold people accountable. We hold politicians accountable by our votes, and I think the way to hold educators accountable is by giving the parents choices. If this educational model is not working for my child, I have another choice that I can make. And I think that would really help our public schools if they had to compete in order to survive. Doesn't that sound real American? If Chick-fil-A wants your business, they have to produce a good product. Otherwise, you will go to Raising Cane's. Now, I know. Whatever. But you get what I'm saying. So I don't mean to be dismissive of anyone's position, but I think we are in too much of a crisis to really say no to anything when we know that our current systems are not working for all Americans. Yes?
How does your school approach sending the kids home and then having the parents involved with the education? How do you get them to participate in it rather than just the student going and then coming home and it's a different environment?
It's definitely a challenge, but this is the reason why I think, again, churches are so critical, because, when our learning guides reach out, who are members of our churches, that's our church community reaching out, right? So like the parent is not just making a relationship with the teacher per se, as much as she or he, the parent, is making a relationship with us now as a church. And so what I found is that when you include parents, like we tell parents you can come at any time, you can sit in the class. We have parents now who will bring the whole learning center lunch, right? Or who will just bring, my wife lunch or whatever, because they're so appreciative of being able to be a part of their child's education. We walk hand in hand with parents. In fact, I believe that the parent is the first educator and the best educator of a child. And so I think being collaborative, but that is definitely an uphill battle, getting parental involvement. Yeah, yes.
Will you be speaking to the legislature today? And if it doesn't pass today, what do we need to do to make sure that it gets passed?
I won't be speaking to the legislator. I think I spoke to a few this morning at a breakfast that I was at. My approach is this. I want to connect with pastors because pastors are part of congregations. And I believe that if pastors were informed and could communicate to their congregations about, what's going on, then I think that it gives us critical mass to bring it back next time, right? And I think that if you had, for instance, the 17th of this month, I have 20 congregations that have committed to bringing 10 people to a town hall meeting. I have the same thing 3 months in a row. At the end of those 3 months, that's going to be 600 people who hear the message of school choice. And I think that if you begin to create that type of critical mass, then it makes it real hard when you're trying to run for re-election to ignore your constituency. Because the reality is of school choice, the polls don't lie. The polls, and it's the reason why I wrote the article for the Wall Street Journal, school choice is a Republican-sponsored bill that's supported by more Democrats than Republicans as far as polls. But it never gets done. And why doesn't it get done? Because people choose money over people. That's what I wholeheartedly believe. But if you knew your position, your elected position, was in jeopardy for ignoring your constituents, then I think you would act a little differently in the General Assembly. So I think it's really, empowering churches and empowering pastors that can empower their congregations to know these issues and then begin to vote according to our convictions. I think that's how we cure the problem. Mm-hmm. Yes.
I'm Jamie Johnson. I have a school, and our attempt is to cause our children to become thinkers. Now, like she was talking about the government support, we ask the question, why? Mm-hmm. Why are you in the position to need? Why are you in the position to need an abortion? Why are you in the need of somebody coming to do things? The why. And we take the time to cause the children to think about these situations. Why are they there? Why do we have young mothers, 15 and all? Mm-hmm. Why do we have grandmothers who are 33? Something like that. Mm-hmm. We have to make them think about it. We don't do it in a critical way. We do it as a matter of fact, like just look at life as it is. Mm-hmm. And we say that if a child becomes a thinker, he can take insufficient information and make an intelligent guess. Mm-hmm. Because we can't tell them everything we need to know. Yep. But we have to turn them on to thinking and tell yourself the truth. Yes. We don't lie to make ourselves feel better. We got this thing about being positive. You can't have any positive without negative. Mm-hmm. You can't have an up without a down, mm-hmm. or wait without a right. Mm-hmm. So we don't skip that. We teach it like life. Life is positive. Mm-hmm. Life has its up and down. So we deal with it as it is, mm-hmm. not how it feels.
Absolutely. And I'll say this. I have 2 girls. And I was a Division I athlete. I'll say it like this. I praise God that Shaniqua didn't marry me for the body I had when she met me. 9% body fat. She had a washboard at one point. Now she got a keg. And truth be told, I had my way about the ladies, right? Because my dad is 82 years old. My mom is 77. One thing they didn't talk to me about was sexuality or how to mingle with women. So I was left to the media, the movies, and the music. to teach me my sexual ethics, right? You can imagine the mess you can get in listening to the media, the movies, and the music. And here's what I'm saying. Who teaches our children about sexuality? And then you look at it how the problem can be exacerbated when you don't have parenting. And then you go to a school who, in order to receive their funding, has to teach your children sexuality from a position that you don't even agree with. Again, this is the reason why I believe that the Christian church everywhere should be creating private Christian schools, because we need to teach our children, right? Not only what not to do, but what to do. I teach my girls not only what they can't do, I teach them how to express their attraction to young boys at an age-appropriate way, right? In an age-appropriate way. Why? Because it's not just what not to do, it's what to do. They're human. My little girls think a little boy is cute. She shouldn't have to not think that, or that's nothing strange. When you was 13, you thought little boys was cute. You thought little girls was cute. But how do we teach them how to use that attraction, right? And because like you talk about, needing an abortion or, whatever that may be, you're responding to bad behavior, right? The reality is most situations, the reason why you need an abortion is because you ain't had no business making the baby. That's most situations. And I think as a people, and when I say a people, I mean American people, what do we value? What do we expect? And I think having solid homes with husbands and wives, raising children, is not too lofty of an expectation. I think it should be our norm. In fact, it's how we got here. The reason why the America we enjoy today is because it was built on these principles of family and country. So I think it's vitally important that we look at education kind of holistically in the formation of the character of our students. I have one here, I come there, and I come there. Yes.
I don't have a question, but I do have a statement. The majority of the model that you described, that you're implementing in your community, we have the same model here in Mississippi with the divinities, and they're sitting right here. They actually founded New Vineyard Academy some time ago, and they're implementing the model here in the city of Jackson. So if you're interested to know about what he's doing, that we're doing already here, then we have the model. It's already been established. We are here functioning and operating a school, and we're open. Our church is open Monday through Sunday. And we're educating young people in the community Monday through Sunday. And so if you're also interested in trying to figure out how you can get involved, you can do inner city missions. We have all of the opportunities available for you. And so if you have any questions, or you want to know, or you want to get involved, we're doing it already, and we want you to get involved too.
And I can tell you this, my sister, how I come along and try to be an ally. In my mind, I'm thinking, how do you pay for it, right? Because if accessibility to that is reduced to affordability, usually, most times, either your congregation is going to have a tall lift to do this, but what I'm saying is your taxpayer dollars are already paying for education. You should be able to offer this, and accessibility should be given to your educational offering, and affordability should not be what keeps a parent from being a part. Not in America. And that's how Black Pastors United for Education can be an ally, because I look at it and say, if you are doing that at your location, how many other churches you know in proxy that could be doing the same thing? Right? So, you could be a force by yourself, right? But we could be a movement when we come together. And that's what I believe. Yes. Okay. 2 more questions. I got one back there and then one over here, and I think we'll be done. Yes.
Pastor, thank you so much for coming down here to the South. My name is Leah Ferretti. I'm with Mississippi Ready, a school choice initiative here in Mississippi. I'm a mom, just a mom, former public school teacher, and y'all, he's right. It's a mass movement. It's up to us, every individual in this room, to take a stand, to reach out to your legislator, because y'all, we're up against a beast, and we know who that beast is. We're up against it. Because they're in our classrooms, they're telling our teachers how to vote, they're scaring them, telling them they may not have a job, that this funding is stripped from public education, and it's working. Fear-mongering works. So it's up to us. Reach out to your legislator. Call, tell all your family, your friends. It's up to us. And we've got to be part of that movement to move the needle. Because right now, Mississippi's left behind. We are the only state surrounded without robust school choice. And as a mom who didn't have a choice 10 years ago, it saved my family's life. And there's plenty of other families that need saving here in our state.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And let me say this. One of the reasons why we had the town hall meeting, one of the goals to come out of the town hall meeting, remember I told you 20 churches are coming, 10 people from each church. So the room is going to be minimum 200 people. One of the goals is for 50 of those 200, minimum 50, would go to their state representative and say, I want school choice. I want the Lifeline Scholarship. That's the bill we're working on right now. $100 million for education for parents who are in the lower 15% of academic performance in the state. So imagine if your state representative was getting 50 to 100 people reaching out on a weekly basis, letters, phone calls. This is how we make change, right? Where we give the lawmakers who want to make the right decision, we give them a leg to stand on by being able to be willing and able to vote based off of our convictions. We should be telling our lawmakers what we expect from them, not asking them what they want for us. We have to reverse that. Yeah. Thank you. One more.
Pastor, I'm sorry, I was just going to clarify because the lady here made me think. What I was referring to, government subsidies for separating parents in the Johnson's War on Poverty, he began to make it very easy for a single mom to raise a family without a father.
Yes.
And the other thing, just really briefly, I think everybody who might be interested, the congressional authorization for public schools via the Northwest Ordinance of 1792. Would you like for me to tell you that mission statement?
Sure.
Okay. To, get this, teach religion, morals, and knowledge necessary for good government in order to integrate native and immigrant populations. And that was a good mission. That was 1792.
Yep.
So
Yep.
anyway, we've come a long way, but thank you so much. Thank you for letting me clarify that.
Absolutely. And let me say this. The reality is, I don't think our country was ever built for its citizens to be dependent upon the government services. And absolutely, what you just said was incentivizing a woman to not have a man in the house perpetuates an ugly cycle of inadequacy as it relates to parenting. So no, but I think we have to, as a society, work together to overcome the deficits that some people are facing, at least temporarily, so that they can get their life back on track. But we can't create a system, and I'll tell you this, and I'm done. I knew that system was messed up when I had a woman in my church who came to, in fact, I was one of the assistants at my dad's church. She was a member of my father's church, and she was 29, 30 years old with 9 children, right, from 4 different dads. She came to the church, gave her life to the Lord, wanted a new future for her life, everything. She's doing good, everything. Imagine how excited she was when she got an offer for a job of $19 an hour. She had never seen anything like that. She was so stoked, like, oh my God. Imagine how horrified she was when she couldn't take the job because she would have lost all of her assistants that she needed to take care of her kids. So she felt trapped. She is trapped. And that's why I think we're too ingenious of a people and creative as a people to allow her to be trapped in that system. We can provide help, but we shouldn't be creating citizens that are dependent upon the government. Yeah. Thank you all for this time of sharing.